So today we'll start with geophysical phenomena across the world. Actually, they ask you about the distribution. First, for 1 hour, we'll try to see which are the different physical phenomena that are there, where they are exactly present in the world, in India, and then I'll also tell you in geomorphology and oceanography, every subject, which are the important areas. For example, ocean currents, is mandatory for you to prepare for mains. In geography, most of the topics are prelims oriented as they are factual, but there are some areas which are required for mains. If you can focus on those areas, that should be enough, because you have to write in detailed answer. Air masses are one, cyclones, something of this sort. Fine. So first, to begin with, when we talk about the geophysical phenomena, we consider earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, tsunamis. Anything more than that? We are talking about geophysical. Landslides. Yes? Anything more? When we talk, I'll come to the cyclones, floods and other things, but when we talk about the earth movements, and along with the earth movements, the physical phenomena that are present are these. So first, let us see where these are present. I hope, I need not explain you how earthquakes are formed and what are the different waves of earthquakes, shadow zones and all, right? But let us see where is the distribution of these. So earthquakes, volcanoes and tsunami. Right, let's take these three together. Fine. So first, if I talk about earthquakes, you have three types of plate boundaries: convergent, divergent, transform. Can you tell me in which of these types we observe earthquakes? Only divergent? Almost all types of boundaries, whenever there is any movement of the plates, we observe earthquakes. So plate boundaries are the active zones. So we say wherever you have active zones in the world, earthquake possibility is there, and it depends upon the intensity of the movement. Okay, so whenever you compress a rock, right, is there a possibility of earthquake? Yes. Whenever faults occur, fault occur, language may differ, but earthquakes are seen wherever you have the plate margins. Any type of plate margins, you will have earthquake impact. I think you heard yesterday or day before yesterday, Mexico, there was earthquake. People were celebrating the victory and there was slight tremors. So if I say Mexico has earthquake, okay, what is the plate boundary which is leading to earthquake in Mexico? North American plate, Pacific plate. And what is this plate? North American plate and Pacific plate. Is it convergent boundary, or is it transform boundary, or divergent boundary? Yes? If you see, there are two things with North American boundary. Okay, one is it is a convergent boundary. Earlier what happened, the Pacific plate converged below, and then they have started moving in different directions. So first they went down. In few places you can see the movement is still there, and in few places the movement is parallel to each other. So you can see St. Andreas fault, which is actually what we call as transform boundary. So North America and Pacific plate has both convergent and also transform boundary. Is this fine? So will you have earthquakes there? Yes. Next, if we take up South American plate, okay, do we have any convergent, divergent or anything present there? So if you talk about the South American plate, we have Nazca plate first, and the South American plate. They too are converging. Okay, but the problem here is when you talk about South America and the Nazca plate, right? So they are moving like this. The meaning of they are moving like this, here the Nazca plate is moving away from the Pacific plate. So if they are converging here, can I say here also the movement will be this side? So if they are like this, can I say here it will be diverging? So you have East Pacific rise. Now you have islands closer to this known as East Pacific rise. Why I am telling you this is, many people believe that in the entire Pacific Ocean there is only convergent boundaries. Because of the ring of fire theory and all, people only recollect that there is convergent boundary. But Nazca plate if you take, and especially the Nazca plate with the Pacific plate if you see, it is a divergent boundary. And if you observe, the Pacific plate has transform boundary as well. So the Pacific plate has convergent, divergent and transform. All these three are present with the Pacific plate. Is this fine? So East Pacific rise is the most important one. This year the geographers and all have actually found a plate boundary closer to this known as Malpelo plate. A new plate boundary has been found closer to this, and it is also believed to be convergent boundary. The meaning of what I am trying to say is, these are the regions where you have trenches. Peru-Chile trench is present along this, and as you have trenches and you have volcanic mountains, yes, so this region is prone to earthquake. Apart from Japan, the region which has lot of earthquakes, Chile is the another important area in the world where regularly we observe earthquakes. Like every year there will be lot of earthquakes in this region as well. Is this fine? So Pacific plate, we saw North America, South America, and when we talk about Japan, right? When we talk about Japan, how many plates are there closer to Japan? One is the Eurasian plate, second one is the Pacific plate, the third one is the Philippines plate. But on the northern part, if you take the islands of Japan and all, Russia and Siberia and the what we call North American plate also meet there. So we usually observe 4 types of plates closer to Japan, right? North American, Pacific, Eurasian, Philippines. These are all one is converging below the other. And the North American plate we usually observe they are bit transform boundary with respect to the Siberian plate. Okay, so this is another region where you have earthquakes, right? Then below that if you come, you have the South China Sea region. Is it prone to earthquakes? So UPSC question was, how are the islands of South China Sea formed, or Philippines, Indonesian islands, how are they formed? What is the reason for their formation? ASEAN countries, are they part of Eurasian plate, or are they part of Indo-Australian plate? Think? They are part of the Eurasian plate. Okay, they are not part of the Indo-Australian. So when UPSC asks you these type of questions, they usually expect you to write the exact plate name. ASEAN is part of the Eurasian plate, and as it is like this, you have the plate like this. Indian plate is fitting here. Indian plate is fitting in this region. And that's the reason you have northeast Himalayas. And the northeast Himalayas, after they come out of the land in the Bay of Bengal, they actually form Andaman and Nicobar Islands. So it's a continuation of that. So beside that, what you have is the Eurasian Plate, and few people, when they divide Eurasian Plate into multiple parts, this is known as right. So this plate people call as Sundai Plate as well, right? Sunda Plate. So what I'm trying to say, Indonesia, Philippines, South China Sea is also prone to earthquakes. As you are aware, Indonesia, there was volcanic eruption as well, and 2017 saw volcanic eruption of barren islands as well. Like, slowly they erupted because there was convergence, which led to, huge volcanic eruption in this part, right, where in the Indonesian part, but there was slight erosions in the Andaman and Nicobar, that is the barren islands region. And remember, Arunachal Pradesh had earthquakes. So guys, what I want to tell you here is, normally what we try to understand is, okay, at one part in the world, wherever the maximum volcanic eruption or something happens, we feel that that is the only place where the volcanic eruption takes place, because that is there in the news. But different parts along the same plate boundary may observe either volcanic eruption or earthquakes. Arunachal Pradesh had earthquake, right? And if you see, barren islands had volcanic eruption when Feb, not like when the Indonesian plate was there. And then when you see, Indonesia had. When Nepal earthquake happened, before Nepal earthquake, there were other parts along the region which had seen some earthquakes. So we say that even before a major earthquake taking place, at different parts along the plate boundary, there is a possibility of earthquakes. Before and after as well. That's why there will be alert across the region. Okay, so don't assume that only at one particular place the plate movement will be there. It will be there along, and each one becomes important for us. I think you are aware now of the Pacific plate boundary. First, see the continents with which it has boundary: South America, North America, yes, Japan, then Philippines. These are the regions where you have the, and East Pacific rise. These are the regions where the Pacific plate boundary is present. Do you have volcanic eruptions in these regions? If you have a convergent boundary, the better thing is you will have trenches and volcanic eruptions present together. So if we observe South America, Peru-Chile trench is there and Andes mountain is there. So can you observe volcanic eruptions in Andes mountains? Yes or no? Yes, there are volcanic eruptions in Andes mountains. So if they ask you world distribution of volcanic eruptions, one important thing is Andes mountains. Okay, will you have volcanic eruption in the North America? Wherever transform boundary is there, you will not observe volcanic eruptions much. But if you have convergent boundary, will you observe? As I told you, North America has both the things. One is transform and also convergent. So the regions, especially the middle part of North America, is having the convergent boundary where you observe some volcanic eruptions. Okay, and then guys, have you seen Pacific plate and the North American plate when they are moving like above? Have you heard of Bering Strait? Some islands are present along the region. So what are these? Are these volcanic? Convergent at some point of time? Volcanic? Yes. So you have volcanic eruptions along the Pacific boundary throughout. Okay, I told you, you have divergent boundary near the East Pacific rise. Will divergent boundary lead to volcanic eruptions? Yes. So the meaning of what we are trying to see is simple. That is, we observe volcanic eruptions along the entire Pacific plate. Okay, because Pacific plate has transform, convergent, divergent. Transform leads only to earthquakes, whereas convergent and divergent leads to. So whenever UPSC asks you distribution of volcanoes, so what I would suggest to you is go ocean wise, and then you can talk about the interior parts where they are present. First talk about the ocean, that is Pacific, and talk about South, North, Eurasia, this region. That should be fine. And then let us talk about the Atlantic Ocean. You know that according to the sea floor spreading, right, Atlantic Ocean is expanding. The meaning of that is it is a divergent boundary. When I say Atlantic Ocean is a divergent boundary, can we have volcanic? Yes. Where are they present? Mid-Atlantic ridges. Yes. Then the second area, where do you observe, right, volcanic eruptions within the Atlantic Ocean? You might have heard of Caribbean islands, Caribbean plate and the South American plate. They both converge. Whenever the Caribbean plate and the South American plate converges, do you have volcanic eruptions? The Caribbean islands and all are actually formed because of volcanic eruptions. So you will have volcanic eruptions in that region as well. Is this fine? So when we talk about Atlantic Ocean, if you see eastern side of North America, eastern side of South America, western side of Africa, eastern side of Europe, right? Sorry, western side of Europe. In all these regions, it is stable boundaries. There are no volcanic eruptions. But in between, at the center of the Atlantic Ocean, mid-Atlantic ridges, volcanic eruptions are there. Fine. Pacific Ocean, what is the difference between volcanic eruption patterns in Pacific Ocean and Atlantic Ocean? If they ask you, Atlantic Ocean is at the center, whereas Pacific Ocean is at the edges of the continents. Edges of the continent. This is at the center of the ocean. The difference of this is, this leads to formation of what we call as fold mountains. Convergent boundary, like geography, different books write differently. Whenever we talk about fold mountains, normally what we know that when two continental plates are separated by some sea, like deposition takes place, and whenever two continental plates come together, right, this leads to fold mountains. This is what we read. Yes, but few books what they say, fold mountains means they give example of the oceanic plate and the continental plate converging as well. So if you talk about Andes mountains, Rocky mountains, right, they call these also as fold mountains. So any mountain formed because of convergence, they usually call it as fold mountains. So can you see a question of UPSC where they asked you why fold mountains are usually present at the edges of the continents? So if they ask you, fold mountain only one, which is it? Himalayas. But you will not give example of Rockies or Andes. Okay, so you can say, according to geologists, wherever you have convergence, usually they call it as fold mountains. Rockies, Andes are typically part of this. Fine? And then we have the next most important one, that is the Europe and the Africa. European plate and African plate. Have you heard of multiple Strambo, many type of Stromboli, Sicily, many type of volcanic eruptions, right? Where are all these volcanic eruptions found? Mediterranean Sea, Have you seen, like, there are some volcanic mountains known as the lighthouse of Mediterranean. Yes, why? They keep on erupting. Why is the eruption so much in that particular region? It's a convergent boundary again, right? So as you have a convergent boundary in the region, we usually say that, like, along the Mediterranean, especially European part, you have volcanic eruptions more. African part you don't have much. That is the reason you don't find mountains in the where? In Africa. In the North African region, the only mountain ranges you have is Atlas Mountains. And the Atlas Mountains are old fold mountains. They are not new fold mountains. So why is this important? If they are old fold, they are not formed now. They are not active, right? So most of the volcanic eruptions are present in the European side. Is this fine? I have a question. Whenever there is convergence of two plates, is there possibility of volcanic eruptions or volcanic mountains on both the plates, or will it be only on one plate? Lighter plate will have volcanic eruptions. So what is the convergent boundary all about? Right? This is going down. This portion will be melted. They rise and give volcanic. So can I say the lighter one will have volcanic eruptions? Heavier one will be going down. Will it have volcanic eruptions? No, right? But sometimes what happens, like very rare cases, not everywhere, very rare cases, as the convergence is taking place, there may be some cracks here. Cracks in these. Then you may find one or the other volcanic mountains, but it won't be like Andes mountains where you have continuously. It won't be like Rocky Mountains. Here and there you will find one or two. Is this fine? So two things that we try to observe here is, when we are talking about the convergent boundaries, anywhere in the world the convergent boundaries would lead to volcanic eruptions. Yes, convergent boundaries of any form usually leads to volcanic eruptions. Fold mountains, it is believed that even below fold mountains, when the whatever the sediments are there, when they rise, yes, so sediments have raised and it has become fold mountain, and whatever gap is there in between, if the magma is there, it starts flowing, it fills this gap as well. So UPSC had asked a question, and the question was, in which of the following seas you observe volcanic eruptions? Black Sea, Caspian Sea, all this region where it has boundary with Alps, Caucasus, all these mountain ranges. And these mountain ranges are nothing more than another form of fold mountains, which are formed because the Eurasian plate is converging with Indo-Australian, African, West Asia, all these plates. Whenever they converge, you get the volcanic eruptions. Is this fine? So guys, convergent boundaries are the one where you have trenches and volcanic eruptions. Divergent boundaries are the one where you have volcanic eruptions. What is Indian Ocean, guys? Is it convergent or divergent? Indian Ocean. If you see Indian Ocean along the Indonesia and all, as it is part of the Indo-Australian plate, they are convergent. So you have trenches below Indonesia. That's why tsunami and others usually occur. Below that, what we have, other parts of Indian Ocean, you usually observe divergent plate boundaries. Correct? Divergent plate boundaries. Antarctic plate is diverging with the Indian Ocean. Antarctic plate is diverging with Atlantic Ocean. So will you have volcanic mountains across? Yes. So along the Arctic, Antarctic, wherever you have the divergence, you have volcanic eruptions. Now, for 12.5 marks, if there is a question about distribution of volcanic eruptions, if you can write about the volcanic eruptions present along the Pacific Ocean called as Pacific Ring of Fire, and then if you can talk about the Atlantic Ocean, mid-Atlantic ridges, Caribbean islands, Mediterranean, and where you will be talking about the Italy and other places, along with that Iran, like Pakistan, all this region, if you come, you have fold mountains, right? In all these regions if you talk, and then when you talk about the Indian plate, the Indonesia region where you have convergence, and after that if you can talk about the Antarctica region, right, where there is divergence. Don't stop only till the major plates on countries that you are aware, but you have to talk about this as well. Africa, where do you have volcanic mountains? You might have heard of Mount Kilimanjaro. Where is it present? Tanzania region. Yes. Why is there you observe volcanic eruptions? Divergent boundary. Rift Valley is there, divergent boundary is there, because of which in Africa at the center, like eastern part, East African Rift Valley, that is the region you have. If you write this out of 12.5 marks, you get 10. Okay, there is one more thing that is left, and these are known as hot spots. Yes. So that's why we try to say you have to be complete. Whenever they ask you distribution, if you can write as much as possible, as many points as possible, places as possible, that will give you weightage than others. So what is the last point? Hotspots. What are hotspots? In between the plate boundary, at few places we usually observe molten magma present, and this molten magma, they try to erupt in between the plate, and it is localized eruption. Hawaiian Islands also had eruptions like this year. So if you see why Hawaiian Islands has eruptions, because they are hot spots. So if UPSC asks you, most of the or all the volcanic eruptions take place at the plate boundaries, do you agree? 90% of the students say yes, and they keep giving reasons for that, right? Mostly yes, but not all. Why? You have in between the plates as well, and the better example is Greenland, right? If you talk about Greenland, Iceland region, they are like hot spots. Hawaiian Islands are hot spots. You have to give example of these two. Is this fine? Pacific plate, in between the Pacific plate also you have volcanic eruptions, and that is hot spots. Is this fine? Earthquakes you are aware now. Are you aware of the plate boundaries now? That is more important. Yes? Then the third most important aspect that we need to see is tsunami. So where do you have tsunami? Yes? What is the main reason for tsunami? Yes?
Because of
sudden movements of earth. Will all sudden movements lead to tsunami? Then earthquake in the ocean. Usually the Richter scale, if it is above 6, 7 or so, we say. But guys, if you observe your maps, and if you can see where tsunamis are usually present, which are the regions which are affected by tsunamis, we observe that tsunamis are usually associated with convergent plate boundaries. So what I am trying to say is, where all do you have tsunamis? Okay, have you heard of tsunami in North America? Eastern part of North America, eastern part of South America, Africa. So we usually try to say the boundaries where you have tsunami, the Japan region, yes, Philippines region, Indonesia region, yes, convergent boundary, the Caribbean region. Wherever you have convergent boundaries in the world, they are the regions prone to earthquakes. Whenever you are mapping, right, if you can write the regions of the convergence, not convergence between land and land, convergence between ocean and land, that is the region where you have tsunami. Pacific Ocean, is it prone to tsunamis? Japan and all are in Pacific Ocean itself. Indian Ocean, is it prone to tsunamis? Because of the Indonesia, Sumatra region. So, what India is coordinating with the Pacific Islands to fight or like to coordinate whenever there is tsunami. What to do and how to fight against it is what we do with respect to this. Is this fine? Now, after this, after seeing these three, I hope geographically now you are aware where what is present. Let us take the next important issue, that is cyclones. Cyclones. Can you tell the distribution of cyclones in the world? UPSC direct question, if they ask you that, like, give a detailed account of the distribution of cyclones in the world. So how do you start your answer? What will be your points? Very important thing that you have to talk is, first, cyclones are divided into tropical and temperate. So you mostly, I am aware, like students will write only about the tropical cyclones. They give willy-willy, hurricanes, the names they will give and they will end. But they won't talk about the temperate cyclones. Fine? The first important thing. Can you tell where is the tropical cyclones present? So first you are seeing this. Second, can you tell where are your tropical cyclones present? Can I say tropical cyclones are present first? If I talk about Atlantic Ocean, they are present where? North America. Where in North America do you observe? Can I say the Caribbean Islands region? Yes. Why do you have in that region cyclones in that region? Why not closer to Africa? Yeah. Even though, why can't it form? It can come back. So first important thing is, what is there within temperature? Can I say in the oceans, western side of the oceans, warm currents are there. Eastern side of the ocean, cold currents are there. So what do you need for cyclones? Warm. So where are they present? Western side. Is this fine? So can I say on the western side, because of the availability of warm water, warm moist water, right, you will usually observe cyclones, tropical cyclones. Example, can you give? First, what you have to do? Distribution on the basis of temperature. Okay, distribution on the basis of temperature. Which are the three seas where you find western side you get, western side of the ocean you get cyclone. First important thing is hurricanes present closer to North America. Okay, is there any possibility that United States of America will have some amount of cyclonic rainfall? You might have heard a lot. Yes. If you see, United States is almost above 30. Correct? 30 means temperate will start. Even then, why do you have cyclones there? Gulf Stream is a warm oceanic current which actually moves not only till the 30, but it moves above 30 as well. And that warm water is enough for the formation of cyclones. Is that fine? So it doesn't go, it recurs. Whenever it recurs, it enters into that region. Second important thing that we need to see is typhoons. Where are they present? South China Sea. That is the Philippines region and all. Is it on the western side of the ocean or on the eastern side? If it is there on the western side of the ocean, again can I tell this is the reason? And have you heard, there are two things in the East Asia. One is typhoons, we call in China. Another one is typhoon. In Japan. Where is Japan present? Is it present within the tropics or is it a temperate one? Can I say it's above 30? Still, why do you have cyclones? Kuroshio. You recollect? So, Kuroshio, warm water. Then, do you recollect Willy Willy? Where? Which part of Australia? Eastern part? So, do you recollect there was a statement that whenever there is El Nino, coral reefs will be affected. Why? See, that's where, like in Australia, if you take, the case was with respect to Australia, right? In Australia, you tell me, what is El Nino? What is normal years? Closer to Australia. In any ocean, on the western side of the ocean or eastern side of the continent, you will have warm water. Why? The ocean currents are moving from east to west. They get accumulated, correct? So, you will observe, if you take Australia, this is the region where you observe warm. Near Peru, you observe cold. This is during normal time. During El Nino, what is going to happen? Here you will have, here you will have. So now you tell me, coral reefs, you might have read, they require temperature of 20 to 21. If it is less, they can't survive. If it is more, they can't survive. That is the reason they are not present in the temperate region. They are present mostly in the tropical region. Now during El Nino, most of the students, what they do is, they say rising temperature, because the mindset is climate change. Whatever happens, climate change, rising temperature. But actual reason in Australia and other parts is, do you understand? That is cold water if it accumulates, and if the temperature goes below, that has impact. Is that fine? Then, on the basis of temperature, you observe this. Is there any other basis for the formation of cyclones? Coriolis force. And you know Coriolis force is there above equator anywhere. That is 10 degree north, 10 degrees south. Anywhere you go above and below, you have Coriolis force. And that is the reason you also say that cyclones are absent in the equatorial part. Right? Whenever they ask you distribution, guys, I know everyone will talk only about hurricanes, typhoons, typhoon, willy willy and cyclones. Right? Is this true? This is what we all talk about. But you also have to add in which regions they are absent. Why the distribution is not present there? The reason is, when I see the answers, what students try to do is, first they try to explain this. Or when they know that the content is not enough, what they try to do is, they give lot of other introductions which are not required. Rather than that, whenever they ask you distribution, doesn't mean you have to say where it is present alone. You can also say where they are not present. Eastern part of the oceans, they are normally absent. Right? In the Indian Ocean itself, both the Arabian Sea and also Bay of Bengal, we observe cyclones. Don't think cyclones are present only in Bay of Bengal. Did you read in the newspaper? I hope exam was there. You might have not read May newspapers completely, but if you have read the newspapers, they clearly mentioned that cyclones of India may be affected because of monsoon rainfall in India may be affected because a cyclone has come in between and the cyclone may divert. But then the IMD said that this cyclone is not coming towards India, but the cyclone is moving towards Yemen, Saudi Arabia region. And many people think that only India we get, but Arabia, like Africa, Arabian region, we usually have a tendency that cyclones don't hit there. But there also you have, the only thing is we don't read the newspapers of those countries. So we are geographically interested in this region. But I hope it's clear that Arabian Sea and Bay of Bengal, both on any side, you may have what we call as cyclones. Can you tell why? Arabian Sea and Bay of Bengal. If you see, Arabian Sea is on the west, Bay of Bengal is on the east. Why? Anything associated with temperature? Can you tell? Are there any cold currents present in Indian Ocean? North Indian Ocean? Do you have? North Indian Ocean do not have any cold currents. Why? It is not opening to the poles. It is present only in the tropics. Arabian Sea and Bay of Bengal, above that you have Eurasian landmass. They cannot go. So, either Arabian Sea or Bay of Bengal, there is possibility of cyclones anywhere. And the reason for this is warm water is present throughout. There is no cold water anywhere in the region. I hope it's clear, right? And then, can you tell me why cyclones are absent in the southern hemisphere? See, if land is not there, cyclone should be more. Yes or no? Why? Because tropical cyclones don't want land. Absence of? Is there absence of warm current in southern hemisphere? You have Brazilian current. Why? No, west wind drift comes at 40 below 40. Water doesn't heat up. Okay? Yes? Easterlies. Now this was asked in prelims. You didn't see the previous year question also. Southern hemisphere, only Australia, Willy Willy is the only region you find. Not in many other parts. ITCZ doesn't shift much in the southern hemisphere. As ITCZ doesn't shift much, you will not have cyclones in the south region. Which part of south? Here you have to be clear that Australian part you have, right? We say Southeast Pacific. Southeast Pacific means we are talking about Peru region, right? And then it is also absent in the South Atlantic. What is the reason? Absence of ITCZ doesn't shift much. You might have seen ITCZ in southern hemisphere hardly shifts till 10 degree south, not below that. Correct? So the 5 things that you say: distribution, you have to give reasons, hurricanes, typhoons, typhoon, willy willy, cyclones. 1, you will write geographical regions. 2nd, you will write climatic reasons. Regions is different, reasons are different. Temperature, you have to say which is the main cause for the western sides. Okay, Here I told you why they are formed mostly on the western side of the oceans. But why do they hit normally on the eastern side of the continents? This is a different question. Do you understand? First one is where they are formed. Where they are formed. Second question that I am asking is where they have effect on land. Which part will have effect? Western or eastern? Eastern part of the continents usually have the impact. Why? Because cyclones which are usually formed between 10 to 30 degree, ITCZ is present above that, 10 to 30 degree, you have northeast trade winds. So as you have northeast trade winds, the cyclones move from east to west. And if you have a continent, it will hit the eastern part of the continent, right? So if you take continent west and east, they usually hit the eastern part of the continent. And because of Coriolis force, what happens? The entire cyclone will start moving. First, the direction will be like this. Next, the direction will be if Coriolis, if wind is moving like this, Coriolis force will be like this. Coriolis force is always perpendicular to the wind direction. So the resultant will be like this. So where do they hit? First, they hit west. Next, they hit northwest. Again, Coriolis force will act on them. Again, it moves in this direction. That is, it moves northwards. So what happens, guys? If we are talking about the cyclones, first they hit here, then they hit here. Okay, so you might have heard of cyclone Ochi, right? Where did it form? It formed below Kanyakumari. Okay, so it went towards Lakshadweep, correct? And then it started moving away. It hit Gujarat coast as well. So can you see? Pakistan, Gujarat coast was affected. How do they move? Like this. Mostly you can also observe, not regular pattern, but cyclones, they hit Chennai. Then you will have the impact in the Visakhapatnam region, right? And then Odisha. Then you have West Bengal, Bangladesh region. This is how it moves. Okay. And when you see in Indian Ocean, especially North Indian Ocean, whenever cyclones are formed, okay, what people try to say is, can you see which is on the Andaman and Nicobar, Andaman Sea? Where is Andaman Sea present? Andaman Sea between Andaman and Nicobar and the ASEAN region. You have Andaman Sea. Is there any is it on the western side or eastern side? Eastern side. Is there any possibility of formation of cyclone there? Indian Ocean, I told you, cyclones can be formed anywhere. The reason is warm currents are present. So Andaman Sea, usually cyclones will be formed and they start moving towards India, right? So when they come, they may not reach Tamil Nadu, they may not reach Andhra Pradesh because they would have curved. By the time they reach land, they may hit directly Odisha and other regions. So you have different types where they are formed, how they affect all this. Is this fine? Yes? Can you tell me the seasons when you usually observe cyclones? The time when you have cyclones? Retreating monsoons? Anything more? What is the main condition for cyclones apart from warm water and all? ITCZ is one of the condition. So whenever ITCZ moves above, when it is over Bay of Bengal, Arabian Sea and all, is there a possibility of cyclone formation? It moves till Tibet, again it comes back, when it comes back, will you have? Yes. So ITCZ, when they are moving above, you will have the formation of cyclones. When they are coming down, you will have the formation of cyclones. So it is that region, that period, usually you have the cyclonic formations. Is this enough for you to write distribution of cyclones? What happens, you begin your answer, you write the points. By the time you write, you feel you have covered. Next question you will start. You don't read the question back. It's not distribution of tropical cyclones, it is distribution of cyclones. So what is left? Temperate. Can you tell where will you have temperate cyclones? And the problem with students is they also write in the first paragraph difference between tropical and temperate. They wouldn't have asked you, they have asked you only about distribution, but they know this answer, that what is difference between tropical and temperate. I was talking to a student yesterday, he was trying to say that, sir, I know it's not relevant, but it was I know that, I wanted to write it. Now most of the people write because they know something about that particular thing, and first they write whatever they know about it, later they will come to the question. Now it's not about knowledge presentation, it's about answering that particular thing. So when we talk about temperate cyclone, are they formed on both land and water? Yes? No? Tropical is formed only on water. Temperate can be formed on both land and water. Can you tell the regions where you have this? Or what is the main condition for that? Fronts. Warm and cold fronts in opposite direction they have to meet. Where do they usually meet? Subpolar low pressure area. Correct? Subpolar low pressure area. Air masses meet. Whenever the air masses meet, what is going to happen? All fronts need not be cyclones. Yes, whenever the difference is more, then only it leads to cyclones. And when we see the regions which are mostly affected by cyclones, right? So can I say you have easterly winds, polar easterly winds blowing like this? Can you recollect? 90 degree, 60 degree, 30 degree. Can I say westerlies move like this? Westerlies move like this? Polar easterlies move like this? Is this the zone we are talking about? Convergence and all? Yes. So usually guys, we observe along the region 45 to 55-60. This is the region where you have temperate cyclone formation, and it can be present along. There are some zones which they specifically mention, but normally we try to say that the temperate cyclones are formed across. And this year for you temperate cyclones are also important, and frontogenesis is also important because of the United States, especially the northeastern part of US actually got the snow and other things. So because of that, try to remember it. Is this fine? Yes. Temperate cyclones are present. You give the latitude and say from where to where. Tropical cyclones, write in detail. Temperate cyclone, a small paragraph is also enough. Is that fine? So after cyclones, if we talk about the last one, what we need to observe is landslides. Okay, landslides, we need not read the world landslides. If we read India's landslides, that are enough. Twice or thrice UPSC have asked you about, in the last 5 years itself, it has asked about landslides. Can you tell me, is landslides occurring in Northeast India today? Why? Heavy rainfall? What are the reasons for landslides? If you can mention them, that should be fine. Can you tell? No. One thing, in a geography answer, first don't bring anthropology. The reason is, you start with deforestation, all human beings issues only you begin with. Nature also has something to do. First write them and then come to the, like, what human beings are trying to do. Those are last, right? So can you tell why it has increased is because of human beings? Naturally it is not because of human beings. Yes, landslides first, at least, like, geography, you read geomorphology first, climatology next, right? Oceanography, then you have other parts. From geomorphology, every subject you try to take points according to the syllabus, it will be very easy for you. From the geomorphology point of view, can you tell where landslides will occur? What they expect is geography answer, terminologies. Active boundaries. Then, will you have landslides if the slope is gentle or steep? The slope, or is slope important? Yes. Then, will you have landslides if there is heavy rainfall? Let's come to climatology region. So what is the another important thing? Or you can say cloudburst. Then geography is done then. You have active boundaries, slope, rainfall. Then comes, you talk about the human beings now. Yeah, active boundaries. You can, like, elaborate here. Earthquakes, active boundaries means earthquakes and all will come. Rainfall, cloudburst, then dams. Okay. Human beings, what are they doing? When the forest cover is removed, that is transport infrastructure, roads, railways, whenever you construct, there is a possibility of landslides. Even if you write, like, 5 to 6 points, what is more important is elaborating them. The meaning of that is, let's take rainfall. Rainfall has different causes. One is, whenever there is heavy rainfall, you usually have excessive, like, removal, like, you call it as, like, solifluction and all. You might have read, like, you have flow, fall and slide. Have you seen? Landfall, slump, all this comes into picture. So that is one reason why, because of rainfall you have. Second reason why you have is, if you have limestone or some other things, so usually they melt, and whenever they melt inside, when the land inside melts, usually what happens, the upper structures will collapse. You know that sinkholes and all comes into picture. So rainfall, try to give multiple reasons. When we talk about slope, right, you can say steep slope usually leads to. Gentle slope can also have landslides if it is having rainfall. If it is having that slippery slope, right, even gentle is enough for this, right? And then when it comes to deforestation, if you have trees and all, usually they prevent the movement, else the movement is easy, water, all this will move down. Okay, so what measures do you usually give it to them? UPSC tries to combine. Nowadays, there won't be only one question, there will be at least 2 to 3 questions. What do you want to do, or how do you identify the areas of landslides? In any region, In the mountainous region, you are a district collector and you have been given the authority to select the place for the settlements. Can you tell which area do you usually choose? Which area do you usually choose? Yes? No, it's a mountainous region. You have to choose an area which is not affected by landslides. You go to hilltop only. Leeward side. Usually the thinking is leeward side means there won't be rainfall, slippery and all. But do you see most of the rivers flow on the leeward side? They originate on the windward side, but they move. Western Ghats are the better examples for us. Yes. You might have heard of what they usually try to find is, they go to the hilltop, right, and they try to put water or sand, rocks, something, they try to put it forcefully from top. Usually whenever you put rocks or anything, they move along the slope. Correct? Water if you put, will the water move along the slope or will it move uphill? Along the slope. Rock is not, mountain is not the shape you draw, right? It has its own shapes. So what happens? Usually wherever the rocks go and fall, water go and fall, we call that as dip of the mountain. You might have heard of strike and dip. That is known as dip of the mountain. And so how do you usually find? So dip is something like this. It goes and fall here. So I will avoid this region and I will try putting the rocks, water and all this side. But if water and rock, however you put, if it is moving like this and if it is not reaching this place, right, this place is good for settlement. This place should be avoided. So dip, strike is very, very important for you to identify the landslides prone settlements. Is this fine? In India, can you tell me the regions where you have landslides? Where do you have? Himalayan regions. Anything else apart from this? Andaman and Nicobar, all this comes into picture, the entire region. So you have to write zone 5, the earthquake zone 5. That is wherever you have these. Okay, so you are talking about the Himalayas, you are also talking about the Andaman and Nicobar region. Slope, can you tell? You might have heard that Western Ghats are formed mainly because of Western Ghats, Eastern Ghats, people say they are rift valleys. So the slope of the mountains are usually steep. You might have heard it is very difficult for you to construct roads and railways across the Western Ghats. And one main reason for railways, they say it's a huge task, mainly because the track, if you have lot of rocks and all, they keep falling on the track. So usually they have nets, meshes on the rock so that it doesn't fall down. So here what I am trying to say, slope, Western Ghats is one of the main reasons. Himalayas also, but Western Ghats are more prone because of the slope. Rainfall and cloudburst, where will you have? Rainfall can be there in Western Ghats, rainfall can be there in northeast, cloudburst can be there in Himalayas. Anywhere you can have cloudburst. What is cloudburst? Associated with which type of cloud? Cumulonimbus clouds. Can you have cumulonimbus clouds whenever you have sun's rays falling vertical? Can it be present anywhere? Yes, cloudburst can also occur anywhere. Himalayas are prone to earthquakes. That is the main reason. Second reason is heavy rainfall or cloudburst. Third reason is melting of snow. Usually may lead to slippery slope. And that also leads to landslides. Northeast India, wherever deforestation has increased, heavy rainfall whenever it occurs, settlements, human settlements have occurred in the regions where you have areas prone to landslides. These are the regions affected. And remember, you will never call something to be a disaster until and unless it affects human beings. Correct? A tsunami in Antarctica doesn't matter. Right? Who is bothered? Earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, no one is bothered. Correct? But one last thing, I hope this is clear. Landslides is clear. UPSC is repeatedly asking about landslides. Okay, whatever you take, landslides is occurring. India is prone to landslides across the mountainous region. So please be careful with this. Mining, where is it affecting landslides? Which region? Where do you have mining more? Chota Nagpur Plateau, Western Ghats? Yes. Will you have impact of mining in these regions? Yes. In India, till today you don't have earthquakes, major earthquakes because of the mines. You have seen some, but not major earthquakes. The collapse has not occurred. And when you talk about earthquakes, one reason is landslides. I gave you only geographical reasons, but you can add dams and other things. But that is disaster. That's why I didn't talk about that. Is this fine? One last thing. If they ask you, what measures do you take to reduce climate change? What are the measures taken to reduce the temperature of the earth? Geographical answer. I hope you get the difference. If they ask the same question in your third paper, like measures taken, usually it will be National Action Plan for Climate Change. All this comes. But if it is in geography, not India alone, but can you tell the world what are the different measures taken to reduce? Have you heard whenever volcanic eruption occurs, especially the volcanic eruption where there is huge ash and other things coming out, it reduces the temperature of the earth by 1 or 2 degrees Celsius. Why? What happens? It reflects sun's rays, that is albedo of the earth. Whenever it increases, the amount of sun's rays entering the earth, if we can reduce, that should be good. For this, what people are doing, they are trying to have some solar panels like mirrors and all in the upper atmospheric layers so that you can send it back. Sulfur dioxide and other some things are usually poured or sprayed in the stratosphere. They don't spray in the troposphere, but it is done in the stratosphere so that it reflects back. So mostly the intention is to reduce the sun's rays coming in. Is that fine? Delhi pollution this year is important. Whether it is prelims, mains, anything you take, they may ask you about the Delhi pollution. So just read that. As I told you, some areas I'll just discuss, or I'll give you what you have to see for mains in geography. Geomorphology, please read plate tectonics. Normally they would avoid continental drift theory. Okay, but just read plate tectonics and continental drift theory from mains point of view. Fine? And please understand the application of plate tectonics. They are now asking how are Philippines formed? Why do you have fold mountains on this region? All this is application of plate tectonics. Geomorphology, usually question will be on plate tectonics, nothing more than that. Fine? Second, distribution of earthquakes, volcanoes and all. Whatever I discuss now, I will leave it, but I will try to tell the other areas which you have to focus. Right? The second is interior of the earth. Third, they will try to connect weathering with soils. Okay. Fourth, erosional landforms and all, normally they won't ask you for mains, but if you can look at the river erosion, right? India, if you are talking, river erosion becomes important. Groundwater, that is the karst topography, has become important. And when we are talking about the Sagarmala project and all, one important thing, that is sea wave erosion, is considered a lot during this. Next, oceanography. They will ask you about ocean currents. This year, coral reefs. These are all mains. Cyclones. Margins. Here they may ask you about Pacific, Atlantic and Indian Ocean differently. Pacific alone they may give you for 10 marks or 12.5 marks. Continental, slope, shelf and all. Then climatology, atmospheric circulation is for mains. El Nino, air mass, jet streams, anything associated with Indian monsoons. Okay, anything associated with Indian monsoons become important. Then you also have, yes, air mass, you try to cover fronts here itself. If they want to complicate, climatic classification, Köppen classification and all. That is, if your day is very good, no, you get these. Climatic classification, yes. Indian geography, don't leave anything. Okay, mains Indian geography is very, very important. You need to know both physical and economic geography as well. Give more stress on economic geography. Something like turmeric, even minute things become important. The turmeric cell is established, right? These are in news. So identify those and work on that. Is this fine? Anything else? 3 issues in current affairs is, one, with respect to what we call as volcanic eruptions. From geography point of view, volcanic eruptions are in news. Second, we also see what we call coral reefs in news. Third, Pacific shadow zone. You might have heard, shadow zone of the Pacific Ocean. It is in news. New Zealand or Zealandia as a separate continent is in news. Yes. Then Malpelo plate. We saw the plate boundary, new plate that has been found closer to the North America, South America region, that is in news. Okay, these 5. plus this year floods are more, if you can observe. But don't think floods are occurring everywhere. You see, there is no rainfall. When it started, Hyderabad got rainfall. That monsoon has arrived. Now, do you see any rainfall? And this has to be the very important season for you of rainfall. Why you are not getting rainfall? Why the east coast doesn't have rainfall? Kerala, you can see floods is occurring. Northeast, it's occurring. So Arabian Sea branch, and this is taking place. When will you get east coast of India receives rainfall? Not because of the southwest monsoons, but they come mainly because of the cyclones. The cyclones, they bring them towards India. So that is not yet seen much. That's why you are not observing. Can you see pre-monsoon showers were more here? There was lot of damage in coastal Andhra and all, pre-monsoon showers. But monsoon is not there. So that's the problem with the leeward side. The areas that comes into picture. Don't say floods means everywhere you have floods. Right? When we say like drought, not everywhere you will have drought. You should know the difference and try to answer. Try to have that specificity when it comes to India. Generalizing in the world is fine. In India, you have to give specific regions which are affected. This year, guys, remember, floods are in news. But I'm telling you, if this trend continues, the south, especially this part, the leeward side part, may face droughts. And UPSC may ask you, why in few areas you have floods and why in few areas you have droughts? They will ask their question. Right? So you have to be conscious about this. Is this fine? Which are the regions? Okay, then one last thing. In India, can you tell the regions where you have Rabi season as a normal season? Northwestern part, that is Punjab, Haryana, UP region, normally it is Rabi season. Rest of India is Kharif. Tamil Nadu should also be naturally Rabi. But because of the Kaveri, right, you have all the three seasons. We are not considering only the irrigation and all. We are considering without irrigation. Not only the northwest, even the eastern part. Rabi season is present even in the eastern part. Rest of India is mostly Kharif. And here I want to tell you that mostly irrigation facilities are provided in India for Rabi season. Okay, Punjab, Haryana, it is given for Kharif season. Earlier, if you see the cycle, like they used to, fallow land. What is fallow land? You don't till the land. So when do you observe this? Punjab, Haryana region, Kharif season, they never used to grow anything. They used to leave it fallow. And again when Rabi comes, they used to do it. But now what has happened? As it is a Rabi dominated region, they definitely want to grow wheat. And wheat cannot be grown in other seasons. They have to grow in winter itself. What they do before this, they are growing rice. As Sutlej you have the Indira Gandhi canal and all, they are going for rice. And they have to remove this rice completely to grow the wheat, to go again. So what they do, they burn. And this is leading to pollution in Delhi. Do you understand? There is link. It is an anthropogenic factor where we have introduced new crops in the region. And this has led to the problem. Is this fine? Yes? So, any other concept or doubt that you have? That's it? Yes? Yes. I didn't understand. Swell waves, okay. So, you might have seen that the water level is usually more in Kerala, Bay of Bengal region or so. Correct. So, if you see the swell waves, the meaning of that is the wave length is usually more. Right? So, why is this? This phenomena has occurred because you know that in the southern hemisphere, especially where you have like westerly winds moving, you call it as roaring 40s, furious 50s, shrieking 60s, correct? So it is believed that in that region, because of like excessive temperature or so, we say whenever the wind is moving over the ocean, right? So wherever the wind moves over the ocean, there usually depression will be formed, and that depression will spread out in the form of waves. Do you understand? So an area fetch of an ocean, like an area receives continuous winds. So you just take a piece of cloth and allow it for a wind. You can see that it moves in a wavy shape. Similarly, oceanic water continuously, if it is exposed, and you know that westerlies are significantly present in the southern hemisphere, mainly because of this. This year the intensity with which it was falling over the region was more, and due to this the wavelength which they created was more, and these waves are said to enter into Indian Ocean, and then they have reached or hit the coast in this region. Is it clear? The swell waves originated near southern ocean. You might have heard west wind drift everywhere. In all the oceans you have one cold current known as west wind drift. Antarctica is there. Above Antarctica, the ocean you have is southern ocean. In that region westerlies usually blow, and that had led to the swells. Is this fine? Swell waves. Anything more? Yeah, sorry, I forgot. Local winds affecting different regions of the world. Blizzard is in news. Just try to see local winds. Blizzard, Santa Ana, Chinook, Harmattan. Local winds, the last concept. This year they may ask you. Just read heat waves once. Last year it was there. Even this year the IMD was talking about the heat waves. Okay, last year it was significantly present, but question was not asked. Possibility of asking question this year will be there. Heat waves. Fine? Thank you guys.